You ever see a single episode ruin an entire show? Well, Haku here, and it's time to review Taboo Tattoo, episode 5. And, let's talk through this one, guys. So, basically going into this, after last episode I was saying, please no Toko annoyance, please no Toko annoyance, because she's just a very annoying and generic character. And then right before I get into the episodes, I scroll down to look at the top few comments, and all the comments are like, ugh, can Toko die already? Show creators, please kill Toko. Ugh, I hate Toko so much. Ugh, I hate the princess so much. And I'm like, I'm about to get into something a little bit hairy, I think. So we start off with the princess getting off the plane. Nothing wrong with that, whatever. Then we see the Laka versus Izzy fight continuing, and Eel jumps in, killing a bunch of soldiers and stuff. And those fight sequences were like some of the best I've seen in anime. It was so high detailed, it was so good looking. Like, the fighting was amazing there. And then Seigi shows up. I hate to say it that way. But then Seigi and Eel get into a fight, and their fight sequence is friggin' brilliant looking too. And during the fight sequence, we find out a confusing thing about Eel's power, like, if nobody sees her, she can't become tangible or intangible again? Like, it was a confusing explanation that didn't make much sense. And I think a big reason for that, and for most of the explanations in the show, is they throw information at you, but they don't really show it or say it properly. Like, there's nothing wrong with not saying something and say, okay, the viewer or the reader needs to infer this. But with this, it's so messy and sloppy and just thrown all over the place that it's hard to keep track rationally. So we see Lisa wake up, we flash back to Toko being lame and generic and really annoying the hell out of me. I wanted Eel to kill her so badly there. So Seigi hears the voice of what I'm assuming to be Voidmaker, and we get a really rushed and really crappy climax to that fight. Like, a lot of people have been complaining about all the jump cuts and stuff, and how it makes it feel unnatural and rushed and just bad direction. And I haven't liked the jump cuts, but the fight sequencing and the story has been overall not bad enough for me to complain that much. But it got so bad here that there's no way you could watch it without complaining. It is really rushed and really just bad direction. The direction, terrible. I saw people saying this was the worst direction they had ever seen in any episode of anime, and I could understand that completely. This was Sword Art Online level bad of an episode. And for those of you that don't know, to me, I say Sword Art Online is probably like so bad I don't even like calling it an anime. I don't even like calling it a show. It is just that bad of a work of anything. But this was bad. This was up there. So we get Princess out of nowhere. Seigi's down. Just random ecchi shit. Just really rushed and crappy. Jump back to the Laka and Izzy fight. Some badass sequences. Izzy shoots him with some air bullets. Then she falls into the same trap. Lisa shows up for the save. They have a really rushed and just awkward feeling climax where they kick the crap out of Laka. And then the princess shows up and they all escape with some really rushed and confusing BS that none of it made any sense. It's because normally a show or anything takes a little bit more time to set up things, to explain what's been set up, to explain what's happening. This just said, okay, here you go. We're going to throw this in here, but only because we have to pretend that we're maintaining a story so that we have time to show more fan service. And that was another big problem with this, is fan service everywhere. And I always say fan service isn't bad when it doesn't distract from the plot. It throws in a little something extra here and there that you're like, okay, that's pretty nice, click, click. But then this is the generic alternate world sort of fan service, the Sword Art Online sort of fan service, where they're like, plot? And they just give up on that to show fan service. the way that I saw, say, last episode, I still gave it a 6 out of 10 because while there was good and there was bad, the bad and good were separate, and you could say, okay, I like the good, I don't like the bad, but you can say that one outweighs the other. With this, the fight's being interrupted by bad, the bad being in with the good makes it so that you can't look at any of the good parts without saying, you can't look at a good fight, say, without saying, oh, that was a good fight. Oh yeah, but it ended getting interrupted by fan service. It makes it so that you can't see the good for the bad in the way. Then we meet Brigadier General Sanders. We have some stupid mundane scenes. Toko is still the worst character ever. And then the scene that ruins the entire show. And what I mean by that, there was, I think it was Mother's Basement. I don't really actively watch him, but he had a good video on a scene that ruined Sword Art Online. I hate using that as an example again. But the scene he used was when they bring a character back to life, essentially, or make it so the character can't die, essentially. And by doing that, it ruins the entire thing by showing that, hey, if we want to, we can just bring this character back to life, or we can just keep this character alive. We can do that with whatever character we want. And it gets rid of all of the tension because you're like, there's no threat of death anymore. No one big or important is going to die. It's more about the fan service than storyline. And that's what this did here by having the ping pong scene with Toko and the princess. Because that said to us, this big bad enemy far off isn't big bad. They're just here chilling. We can have ping pong and silly conversations with this enemy. And that takes away all of the threat. It says that we care more about showing some ecchi yuri fan service than making a storyline where there's any sort of danger. It takes the danger out of this, especially no one ever dying. All of these deadly fights and no one actually named ever dies. It's always these just generic little background soldiers. And while those deaths are cool, it doesn't mean anything. The meaning, the tension, the heaviness of the series goes flying out the window with that. So we basically get some ecchi after that, and then we get this boring generic conversation with Tom and Izzy, and then we end it with, after the credits, this one dude showing up from Brahmin and kicking Seigi's ass. And again, that's it. That's all we had. So really, I thought this episode was really dumb, really rushed, really silly, and this is an anime I think I gave 2 9.5 out of 10s to, and it tried to be funny, but it wasn't funny because, like, you couldn't laugh at the comedy because the comedy was interrupting things that should have been serious. It was all chopped apart, and I've got to say, the direction and story was the worst. Like, I struggle to think of anything I've seen in a single episode that was this badly directed. The direction, just the jump cuts, everything was so terrible. Like, and this is a show that I really liked, I really enjoyed, but this was terrible. I thought after last episode, I was like, okay, really good shows that a ton of people love and enjoy have an episode that I think is bad and a ton of people think is bad. A good show can have a bad episode. That's what I thought last week. I was like, it was still a little bit better than average for an anime these days. But this episode, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like the whole direction of the show has just been ruined by this episode. I really feel like all of the weight that could have been there is now gone. All of the heaviness of the show is now gone. Like, it was completely taken out by the random ping pong with the supposed big bad. And even the animation and action sequences at the beginning were amazing. Some of the best I've ever seen. But even some of the best I've ever seen does not help horrible, abhorrent story. Anything else I needed to say? Oh yeah, the episode was very bipolar. Like, it was very bipolar between completely amazing and total shit. And I think I've seen a lot of people say that too about the series in general. Like, this episode for sure was completely bipolar between amazing and complete shit. But just, it was such a huge disappointment. I liked the first few episodes so much, and then this episode was a massive, massive disappointment. One of the worst episodes of an anime I've seen, probably. And yet, with some of the best action sequences I've seen in anime. So, very, very strange dichotomy there. But, being the huge disappointment that it was, I think I'm gonna give it like 2.5 mindless, ecchi, yuri, whatever, out of 10. Just 2.5 out of 10. Just really bad. I can't make excuses for this episode. Like last episode, I was like, there was bad, but there was a lot of good too. So you can look at this good, but this episode, I can't even make any excuses. It was just a bad episode, and it quite possibly ruined the series. So sadly, I went a little bit hard this review. Sadly, I had to. But anyway, like if you did like it. Comment down there, tell me what you thought of this episode and what you thought of my thoughts on it. Sorry it was a bit ranty, but it's what it required. Subscribe if you want for more Taboo Tattoo, 91 Days, Fukiya no Mononoke, and One Piece. Those are all the anime I'm covering this season. But I'm also covering a bunch of manga and other stuff too, so if you want to check that out, that'd be cool as well. Follow on Twitter if you want as well, and I'll try to keep you updated there whenever I post anything or push anything back. So that is it for this episode. Thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.